Okay, great. I had this in my pocket, possibly you've gotten with it. So anyway, we use this because it gives me a much clearer audio to go with the video, which we always post on the internet. So, anyway, that isn't the end of the story here. The other major aspect is the Sun and Mars are squaring what? Anybody see it here? Huh? Who said what? What'd you say? Moon. Good for you. It's exact square. Almost 1416 square. The moon, whenever the moon and the sun are afflicted, there's threat to the life. Because the moon and the sun are your life. It's the sun is your vital force, your heart, your life force itself. The moon is the function of the body. Okay, anything that can impede that function. Okay, kidneys give out, something else breaks down, you know. That's the moon, okay? So when you see this Mars, and Mars will do what? Mar, injure, and it's squaring his moon. So the fact that it's conjunct the sun, squaring the moon, that's the part of it. But I want you to look at the totality of this chart. He's got the sun square the moon. He's got the moon square Mars. He's got Neptune squaring Venus, which he went through a divorce prior to his death. He's got Mars square or conjunct the sun. These are conjunction of Mars to anything can be, if it's afflicted, it can be a problem because it's conflict of what? It's the war of the spirit. But it's interesting though. Mars conjunct the sun, his life. He dedicated his life to helping others build their bodies, strength and health. Of all things to die of, something that he gives his life to helping others achieve a higher degree of health. He was a very modest man. He was very, very humble. He taught himself music without training. Just extraordinary. And you can see that in that chart. I mean, that's also Mercury conjunct Saturn in Pisces is very much that ability as well. But the other thing about this chart, he's got Jupiter square Saturn. He's got the Sun conjunct Mars. He's got Mars conjunct Sun. Okay, we got that twice. We also have something else besides the Yod. And this is what it looks like here, the Yod, and the square to the moon. All these planets. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets, all in affliction in that chart. To be born with that cross. And what did he do with it? You know, he used that as strength. He developed his own strength and taught others to do the same. He was a very disciplined man. Very disciplined. He didn't have patience for people that wouldn't stay with the programs he had. He would say, you know, if they're not going to work out and they're not going to do the things that I teach them, I'm not going to keep them as a student. And so, okay, the other thing is I want you to look at is this, just to show you how powerful this is. He's got Saturn, the great Satan, right, opposing what in this chart? Uranus and Pluto. Now, we already had enough whammies here without adding this to it. But Saturn sits in opposition to Uranus and Pluto, and it squares Jupiter over here. It's a T-cross. Perfect T-cross. Talk about a star-crossed chart. I mean, you couldn't have a worse chart, quite frankly, in terms of afflictions. Now, it's an interesting thing about crosses and trials like these and being born under them. He took this energy of crises in his life, and what he did is he turned it into a virtue. He taught others and himself, and he lived it, how to be strong and how to develop strength of character, not just the body. He was amazing. Everyone that ever trained under this guy loved him. He was so admired by everybody. The funeral home was filled. No seats left. People came from everywhere, from other parts of the country. So, you know, I called his mother. I said, is it okay to use the chart? She said yes. And then she wrote me back and said, please don't use the name. I said, I'll do that. You know, we'll honor that, of course. But the point is that I wanted you, she's a student. She knows astrology. She knows the power of this, and she understands it. There's so much here. You could spend hours. Now, here's the thing. If my technique that I'm teaching you works, then it should work with this. It should be as accurate as it is always, okay? And I'm telling you it's been accurate. I do charts all the time that I have no idea anything about the person, and I apply my technique to it to see if it works. Guess what? It always works. How can that be? And I'm telling you, I've been doing this for years, and I keep looking for it to break the rule, for something to be an exception. It's never an exception. And except I taught you and I'll teach you how to do it so well. The 3 things you look for. How many of you know those 3 things right now? What are they? Yes?
The house.
Huh?
The house.
No? The technique of predicting I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
That's different. What is the technique for predicting that we're going to use? No one teaches this. You're getting it. I've only taught it to one other class ever.
The new moons?
Who said that? The what?
The new moons.
Good for you. Good. You star student. Go ahead. And the next thing is what?
Progression.
Progress moon. Good. Next thing. One more thing. Transit Saturn. 3 things. All 28 cycles. Listen to this. Progress moon, 28-year cycle, 28, 29. Saturn, 28, 29. New moons, 28 days, 29. Amazing, isn't it? And it took me years. I always knew about progress moon's power, predictably. And I did charts for years on radio, all over the nation. San Francisco, San Diego, LA. I had hourly night shows, sometimes 3 hours long, doing charts for people on the air, reading them very quickly, accessing all their information on a computer and giving them readings while I was on the air. During those years, I always knew there was something missing, but I never knew what it was. And I was always very leery of these astrologers all over the country talking about, oh, I got Saturn doing this, Saturn doing that, and nothing would happen. And I know in my own life, I used to watch Saturn and be, my God, Saturn's doing this, I got something to worry about here, right? Something to fear. The boogeyman is here, right? And I'd look for it to happen, nothing happened. Couldn't figure out why. So I kind of pushed transit Saturn out of my pictures as far as predictive. Progress moon, new moons, I knew worked. And I knew they were accurate, but I also knew there was a degree of inaccuracy, and I didn't know why. When I was in Massachusetts, I started teaching a class, just like you, and I ended up accidentally uncovering the mystery. And I've only taught it to one other group, and that was in Massachusetts, and I'm going to teach it to this group starting the 21st. And it's so accurate, I'll put it on this chart. Now, get this. This happened, this funeral was last week. I never met this guy, know nothing about him. I had to have his chart because his mother had asked me to do his chart prior to this death. The point is, let's put the technique to work in this chart. Let's just see what happens, okay? So, I also want to teach you something else tonight. Some of you are struggling with how to read aspects, I know that, okay? It's a lot to grasp in 5 weeks. And so, what I want you to do is, I've all asked you to do one thing. I've only said and suggested only one thing in terms of, oh boy. I only suggested one thing, and that's you get a program. And the program that I requested you get is called Time Passages. And how many of you had a chance to do that? Don't be bashful, it's okay. You got it?
Yeah.
Good, good.
I looked at it, I haven't made it.
Good, okay. And you can put it on your iPad?
No,
Is
I
there
have no
something
iPad, it's on
similar
my
for
computer.
It'll work on your, oh, you got it on the computer. You got the big program, huh?
The basic.
Yeah,
The
good.
basic.
I have.
She did
Good.
it for me.
Okay, the point being that you can get it all on your iPhone or your iPad as well. For $29.95, I think, forever. It's yours.
That's good.
Yes,
That's
it's great. Now, not only does it do everything that the computer one does, it does progressions, transits, and it does your charts. And it stores them all for you, so if you want to go back and look at them. So that's what I recommend you do. Now, you can get a free version of the program, but I don't recommend it because then you have to pay for all the little extras all the time. And what's $30 when you own it? Yes.
It's $49.99. We bought it yesterday.
Yeah, 49.
On the, you mean for the iPhone and iPad?
No, for the computer.
Computer.
No, you're talking about computer program.
He's the-
I'm talking about the iPhone version.
Oh, okay.
Computer's great, if you've got it, that's wonderful, use it. But I'm saying you can get the program, it does everything for the iPhone and for the iPad. And it's available, I'm sure he's got it available also for, what's the other program's phones called? Android?
I checked, but no.
Didn't have it?
No.
I was looking
They
at
don't
the-
have it.
Android has no program?
I mean, I didn't find anything like.
No, it's not for Android, you are right.
Right.
I
It's only for iPhone.
Only for iPhone, for iPad, or computer.
Gotcha, okay, good. Anyway, I want you to get it. I'm gonna show you how, also today, just how effective it is and how to use it. Now, the main thing I want to do today is show you a couple powerful interpretations of this. If I can find them here, I'll put my glasses on. The thing is that if the technique's gonna work, it's gonna work all the time. And this, quite frankly, it's scary because it does all the time. So the thing that I did was I did a transit for that date, and I put Saturn in here. And Saturn, all of you probably know where it's at right now.
Yep.
At the time of his passing, guess where it was? Get this one. Wait, I'll use a different color so you can really see this.
Scorpio.
What degree of Scorpio is it? Anybody know?
Well, it's not quite, but I know it's a late degree.
How about right at 16?
I can definitely check, wow.
Tell me that's coincidence, right? How about this? It's doing this. It's setting off the quincunx. Exactly. It's setting it off exactly. 16, 16, 16. This is brought into orb even though it's 5 degrees out. It's still in that quincunx. Now, what's the odds? In a 28-year period, that Saturn's moving through your entire chart. Goes full circle, right? 28 years. What's the odds at the moment of his death it'd be exactly there? Now, but that takes more than one thing. Remember I told you I didn't have a lot of faith in Saturn's transit because I wanted to know that there was something else involved. And I knew it took more than one thing. It took 2 to 3 witnesses to establish something in law. That's scripture, okay? Except there be 2 or 3 witnesses, it's not established in law. I even use that in astrology, and that's how I work. So I want to find out something more. If I just saw that, I wouldn't jump, but I would be really paying attention. My God, is that one exactly on point? Now, the next thing I want to know is, I want to know where the progressed moon is. So guess where it is? Tell me it's coincidence. Huh?
What was that? What, how many?
22
22 degrees.
I see.
Aries moon progressed. That's the P moon. I call it P moon. It's a progressed moon. I put it in like that, and I do T Saturn up here. When I put them in a chart, I always write them in out. If you come to me for a reading, you'll see those on the outside of your chart. You'll see T Saturn, transit Saturn, and you'll see me put P moon, which is your progressed moon, on where it is right there that day you come to visit me. Because I want to know what's going on in your life right now. If I want to know what happened, let's say 7 years ago, I would go back again this way, and these are going to move about 1/4 of the chart in 7 years. See what I'm getting at? So if you're born with a cross on your chart, you're born with Saturn and the moon on a cross. They're square to each other, they're opposition to each other, they're on a cross. Every 7 years you're going to have a crisis. I know that without even doing anything with your chart. I know you're going to have a crisis. It's called Saturn chasing the moon, because they're both moving. Progressed moon is moving at 28 years to go around the chart. And guess what? The progressed moon starts from the day of your birth. Where's that moon when you're born? It's where it is. 28 years later, it'll be back again. Or 29 years. Because it moves sometimes 12 degrees a day, sometimes as slow as 9, some days it's 14. So it's kind of, if you went for the day of your birth, 28 years or 28 days later in your chart, you get the progressed position. You don't have to know all that anymore. I used to have to calculate it. And when I was in prison, I had to figure all that out. You don't do that. You got a calculator, a computer. It does it all in a minute. It's just like this. It's all there for you. So you've got it made. All you have to do is learn to interpret it. You don't have to sit there and do logarithmic calculations. You don't have to figure out sidereal time and local mean time, all those things, and deduct your Greenwich Mean Time and make sure that its local mean time is off of the Greenwich Mean Time by this much degrees, and that translates to this many minutes. I did all that. I used to know how to do all that. I became a good mathematician with my astrology, even though I was poor at math as a kid, but boy, when you want to learn something, if you're interested, you'll learn, right? So I became kind of like the mathematician. But for me, it was a beautiful process. Doing a chart for me was more than just doing the calculations, it was a meditation. It focused me, it brought me into attention span, into a very deep focus. So it wasn't a negative experience to do all that. It actually caused me to concentrate, focus, and then become more meditative and reflective, which allows you to read better. Okay? So, the only thing we didn't put in here is the new moons for that period. In fact, I don't even think I have a new moon chart here.
I just looked it up.
Did you do it?
Yes, the new moon on June 27th
Yes, honey.
was at 7 degrees Cancer,
Right here?
right there. Exactly.
Right here. Okay, so the new moon was doing what? 7 degrees Cancer. So it was exactly squaring his sun, 7 and 9 within 2 degrees, right? And it was also conjunct his moon. Okay? So all of the afflictions are there. I hadn't even done the new moon yet. I didn't even put it in yet. And you see how accurate this is. The three things that you would have looked for are all afflicting. Heavy afflictions to his life itself, in this case, from the moon to the sun. 7 to 9 is only 2 degrees off square to the sun. So that was the new moon. Can you believe that? So what I'm trying to show you is that these things work. They work accurately. They're very predictive. They're very easy to see. I'll teach you other techniques, but this is just a more dramatic one I want you to see. I could just show.
Sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to
You
interrupt
don't interrupt. Never.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just wondering, that point on the chart that's exactly opposite
The rising.
his rising sign,
Good
his,
for you.
Yeah.
the cusp of the first house, it's exactly opposite. So that's the time of his birth. That being the opposite could signify the time of his death.
It's opposing his I am. Yeah.
And is there a name for that point on the chart?
Right here's descendant.
Descendant.
Life, yeah. Descending, yes.
Do you find that many people have an aspect on that point in the chart
Well,
when they die?
one of the things we'll do in the next class, and I'll spend a lot of time with it, and that is going over charts like this continually. I'll do, I was just plugging in and I was seeing some of the work that I had done for this class, and it's quite, every chart I did, people say, oh, Ron, you probably look for charts that fit your scheme. I didn't have any way of doing that. I just took an event. What was her name? Nicole Smith, the one that died of an overdose of drugs. I had no idea. It's in the news. It's what happened. When it happened. What was involved. I do the chart and it's there. Everything is exactly on time. Everything is perfectly set up for it to happen. I happened to do a chart. I read about the Shaw's son in New York. Killed himself. Committed suicide. And they gave his birthday. I run it and do a real quick chart. I'm just curious. I said it must be there. Sure enough, everything fits. It's all there. And I can do this and I can compile it. I put together, I'll probably give it to you as a gift because it's a legacy of mine. What I'm giving you is a treasure. You have no idea what it is. If people knew, they'd be breaking the door down to get this technique. I'm serious, they would be. If people knew what I had, I remember meeting a kid one time who was a martial arts guy. He was from Elkhart, Indiana. He was a very country bumpkin, and he was amazed. And a minister who had married me and my ex-wife came up to me and said, Ron, you got to meet this guy. His name was Bud McGee. I said, so I got to meet him. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, I'm pretty good. I've been, 9 years in prison, 4 years in the Navy. I'm pretty good at sizing up people, men particularly, very quickly about their strengths or weaknesses. And I know there's something about him, and I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, this guy, there's something unusual about him. the strength I saw in him was paramount. I knew there was something. I didn't know what it was about. Because the minister walks away. He just left after he said that. So I said to him, what do you do? He says, oh, martial arts, kind of casually. I said, oh, what kind of martial arts? I said, I've studied martial arts. I said, what kind do you talk about? He says, well, he said, you know, probably I'd call it jiu-jitsu or judo. He said, but I don't know. He said, I don't know what to do with it. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, he said, I've discovered something. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know, I'm supposed to go to Hollywood with it and become famous, or, you know, it's like I've discovered an amazing thing. And I kept asking him, he said, let me show you. And there was a side room where we used to go to get coffee, and it was a psychic fair, like event, and I was there. And so he takes me behind, and there's a guy standing off behind him that I didn't know who he was, but I noticed he was standing off the distance from this Bud McGee. And he comes with us. And he looked like Mr. Clean from the... You ever seen those commercials? The guy that cleans the open stuff up? so whatever. He's bald-headed, you know, big tooth, strong, you know. He comes back with him. And he starts doing an exercise of martial arts, which I could not believe I was seeing. He lets this guy hit him. In every vulnerable spot there is to hit somebody in the body. To either kill you, to wound you, to disfigure you, to leave you writhing in pain on the floor. He takes all these blows and not a thing happens to him. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He karate chops him in the throat. He kicks him in the solar plexus when he gets on his knees. I mean, this big man kicks him with a football kick into the solar plexus. Bud McGee's not even hurt. He hits him with karate blows into the side of the ear and the side of his temple, which is very shallow bone here. It's easy to break. That's why they hit that spot, because you can crack that bone easy. He hits him in the collarbone, and I know how to break those bones. I've been trained in that. And I watch him do it, and these are the easiest bones to break because they're this way. Okay, so you hit them hard and hit across, you generally break them. So I'm watching all this, and I can't believe it. I'm seeing what I'm seeing. And I said to him, Bud, what are you doing? How do you do this? He said, I've learned something, Ron. He says, and I'm teaching it. This guy can do the same thing, this big bruiser guy with him. He said, it's simple. He says, I've learned that one life form can't hurt another life form. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you know, I've learned to embrace it. I don't resist the pain. I accept the pain. I let it transfer. Instead of blocking the pain at the point of blow, I let it go through my body, and it doesn't cause any injury. I said, you gotta be kidding me. I said, it takes a few pounds of pressure to break this bone here, this cartilage here, you know, and kill you. And you're gonna tell me you just transfer the energy? He said, yeah, that's what I do. So why do I tell you that story? Because that's how I feel about this. It's something so marvelous, it's so phenomenal that if ever astrologer in the world knew about it, they'd be knocking my door down. I haven't taught it to anybody else, but you'll be the second group I've ever taught it. And it's because I won't be here to teach it again. I'm giving it to you as a legacy. It's a very powerful technique if you take this stuff serious, and if you do it and use it, you're going to become prophetic, and you're going to become very accurate in your predictions. Okay, there's a lot more to it than this. I'm giving you the key things. You think I created this? You think I set that up? No. I didn't even know where the new moon was until Michelle told me it was. The point I'm getting at, I look for those three things. They're all adding up to the same story. You got a message, you better listen to it. If it happens in your own chart, you better pay attention. When I had a heart attack 5 years ago, I didn't pay attention. Because I'm like the shoemaker without shoes. I never do my own chart. Yeah? Yeah? You know that, don't you, girl? Huh? You're doing everybody's chart for your own, right? So this is a good astrologist here, by the way. She is amazing. Tammy's amazing. She's been with me for a lot of years. Great student. Anyway, this is a simple way to see what's going on, okay? And this is the prophetic things. This is the things that makes you an astrologer, that can bring you fame, if that's what you seek. I don't seek it, but that's what you get. You can get it easy. And it'll come to you if you start working with this and practicing it and using the techniques I teach you. You have no competition because no one else knows it. And it's not because I kept it secret, it's just because I just discovered it when I was in Massachusetts, and I have never had a group, quite truthfully, ready for it. you know, because you gotta be ready for it. You need to know astrology to make it work. Okay. All right. Don't forget, I got diplomas for you tonight. Don't forget those of you that haven't come in. And want to make sure we get those out. And let's see, what time is it? It's 8:30. So we'll get these out to everybody too tonight. And also, don't let me forget that, because I tend to get busy. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to start thinking astrologically. I want you to start using time passages. You have no excuse not to look up aspects. You can just look into the time passage. It'll tell you what every aspect means. It's not a completeness because you have to see the whole chart to get a complete rendering of that. If I just looked at the chart and I said, oh, he's got moon square Mars or Mars square moon, I know, what do I know about that person? Instinctively, right away, do I know as above, so below. I know that there's conflict, war, Mars, fighting, all that going on in his soul. Okay? I know that he's had a lot of conflict in his life regarding the mother and the moon. Why? The mother and the woman in his life. Because that's what the moon is. It's a nurturer. Okay? Doesn't mean that anyone's wrong or right. It just means that there's been that battle going on, something going on. I don't care to know. Okay? I'm not going to get into that part of it. It's not for me to do. I might say, you know, there's conflict. You guys have had some conflict, you know, and kind of puff over a little bit because I don't like to get too personal with people if it's their son and that. But I try to let them know that there is stuff here. There's issues. The problem with Mars squaring Moon is a lot of internalizing of pain and anger, pushing it down, pushing it way down. But it's also very explosive. Mars square Moon. Because that means if you push their button emotionally, you're going to bring forth what? Mars. And Mars isn't, excuse me please, it's, I'll knock you down and talk to you later. You know, I'll get right in your face and tell you what I think. Where Saturn won't. Saturn will go behind you and stab you in the back. Saturn's subtlest of all the beasts. Satan, the devil, the serpent. He's the subtlest of all the beasts. Subtlety is subtle. In other words, I don't like you, but I'm sure not going to tell you to your face. Do you remember January is Capricorn sign, and Saturn is what? Ruler of that, right? Okay? We're hard on Capricorns, aren't we? So what are we doing now? But what is Capricorn? What is January about? What's the name January come from? Anybody know that? Help me out. It's from a god.
Janice.
Good, she's always on top. Look at that. She's got it. Janus, the two-faced god. What do you say when somebody, you know, says one thing to you and goes to tell you something else? Kind of two-faced, huh? That's Janus. That's Janus. He's a two-faced god. So when you're dealing with Saturn energies, you see somebody's got a lot of Saturn afflictions in their chart. You know, they've got to learn that's going to come back to bite them. You know, it's going to come back to haunt them. Now, I lived in a 57 square acre prison for many years, 5-6 years, in several places, but the one in Michigan is where I learned that the best. It was amazing to me how fast something said got around that prison and got back to the person that it was said about. And you think it's a small world. Well, you know, you got 6,000 men in there or something. I don't know how many are in there. I mean, but it's funny how it works. It just comes back. Well, I didn't really mean it. Okay. So this is what astrology is all about. And I'm giving you the mysteries of mysteries. I've given you more than you have any concept of in terms of the mysteries. If you read my book, you'll really get the mysteries. You really know and comprehend it. Okay? Is it for everybody? Not really. That's why they had mystery schools. And only the select or the elect were allowed in. Okay? Everybody wasn't to get in. Why is that? Because knowledge is powerful. It can be used, it's a double-edged sword. It can be used for good, and it can be used the other way as well. So I won't go there. Read my book, you'll get that. Okay. You know, you've heard of black magic, you've heard of the goat of Mendes, upside man, upside down, the goat of Mendes. You know, all that. That's all taking that energy and trying to pervert it and bring it into a different use. So this is really, when you look at these aspects, you say, oh, sun square what? Moon. Give me an interpretation very quickly of that, anybody. Sun square moon. Spirit, sun, moon, what? Soul. Okay, now carry it further. Hmm?
Will versus emotion.
Will, who said will? Come on, girl. Give it to me. She's always on top.
Will against emotion.
Good. Will against emotion. How does that translate? A conflict between will and habits. What's your habits? That's your moon. What's your habit patterns? That's your moon. What's your comfort zone? That's your moon. What's the baby at the breast? It's the mother nurturing the child. That's in all of us. We're all looking for that, okay? Okay? I'm still sucking at the breast. Oh, excuse me. What is it? So what is that all about? We're still looking for their mother. We're still looking for the nurturance. We're still looking, you know, we as human beings, we are parodying all this all the time. We're looking for our nurturance. And so what happens when you have a conflict between the will and the emotions, will and the feelings, will and the habit patterns, you tend to do what? What's going to win generally? Think about it. What's going to win between the will and the emotions and feelings?
The emotion.
Most always. Most always. Unless you have a very strong-willed Leo. See that? Sun in Leo. Oh, is that strong? That's why it's called what? The lion, the king, Leo, right? And we have a sun that has those qualities. He's a giant of a spirit. Everything he does well. He exceeds at it. You know? So anyway, so we know what Mars is to the moon. Mars. Just think about it this way. Mars something. I mark something. Okay? I mark this board with my crayons here. Okay? I'm marking it. That's Mars. Okay? And it can wound. It can be a cut. It can be a burn.
If it's afflicted.
If it's afflicted, good for you. Keep us in mind here. So what are we dealing with? Mars, the moon. Soul and soul injury. Moon to sun. Conflict with the will. Here's a man that took his life and taught others to overcome their weakness, their habits, their bad habits, and do what? Create strength and will and determination to achieve something of a wholeness. Now, this is a man that is a giant amongst men. He was the most humble and most beautiful soul. I mean, I never met him personally, but I know his mother, and I see where the beauty came from, too. The only point I'm getting at is all these negatives were strengths. And even though his body couldn't withstand the onslaught of all these energies that brought him down at an early age, he was a giant amongst men. Neptune square Venus. He had a lot of sorrow in relationships. Neptune is what? Sorrow, self-undoing, all that stuff, okay? Squaring Venus, the mate, the relationships, okay? There's great sorrow there. And I knew there was in his life. Mars conjunct the Sun. Powerful spirit, though. See, Mars conjunct the Sun gives that strength of will. Okay? Strength is Mars. Muscles, strength, all that stuff's Mars. Mars rules the muscular system. Saturn rules what? Come on, guys. Skeletal frame, the teeth, the bones, the structure that keeps you standing.
Mars rules the head too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes, it does. And oftentimes when you see a chart with Mars rising in the east, on the ascendant over here, afflicted, you'll see, first thing is, like I told my daughter when she called me about her boyfriend, I says, he's got a head injury. She says, I don't know. I says, he's got a head injury. He's had something almost, very serious to his head. And he's got arthritis because I saw Saturn affliction. Where did that come from? It came from that chart. I should get the chart sometime and just show you where did all that come from. So she's laying on the couch with him the next night. She's rubbing his scalp, trying to find something. She finally says she can't find it. She says, did you have a head injury? I said, yeah, I almost lost my head. It was scalp from here to here in that car accident. Do you have arthritis? No, I was, yeah, the guy's freaking out, you know. Said, you know, I was semi-pro tennis player. I was semi-pro. I had to quit. My hands stopped working right because of arthritis. Where are you coming from? He said to her. What's all this about? Well, my father told me you'd have those things.
This guy never show up again.
Yeah, how to end a relationship with your daughter. Oh, that's cute.
How to lose a
Yeah,
guy
I should have asked her to come back. No, I know they're still together. But that is something that it freaks people out. I have another son, Brian, and he's got a new love of his life, and they've been together a while. But I don't remember. He asked me something to look at her chart, and I did her chart. I told her, I said, you know, she's been in a very abusive, bad, terrible, almost a stalking type of relationship. It's really been very injurious to her, and that's exactly what had happened before he met her. She was her ex-husband. It's even to this day was giving her time, you know, wouldn't let go, and she wanted out. She couldn't handle it anymore. But the point being that you see these things. I've never met that woman. I never met my daughter's boyfriend, but you know, you can see it. And you know, I have a client that I met last week. In fact, she came here for the funeral, and she's one of my clients, and I've had her for years. Every year she gets readings. Sometimes even earlier she'll call me, and you know, I see things in there. She's got 2 boyfriends going. When I met her, when I first did her chart, she didn't have any relationships. I'm getting older. I'm in 60s. I doubt if I'll ever have one. I said, you're going to have 2. Within a year, you'll have 2. And the funny thing is, she's had 2, and she doesn't know how to make up her mind between either one of them. One of them finally dropped off, but she's got the second one's come back into her life, somebody from Canada. So now she's found another love. So she's still got 2. My prediction was not only accurate, but it stayed accurate, even when one of them had enough of it. So the point being that, you know, you're doing this stuff for clients, and you're starting to see things, you're starting to speak things. And the more you are attuned, you know, the more you stay focused with this, the more you're going to see and learn. But I've given you the basic tools. Believe me, you have no idea what you have. And if you stay with this, don't just put it down, okay, class is over, this is the last class tonight. I think I've learned enough. No, you haven't. You'll spend the rest of your life learning if you're really a good student. Because every chart you do, every one is a new test of your ability. Every one. You're never going to say, I got it all figured out. And each one is a good teaching lesson for you as well. Because every time you do a chart for somebody, you're going to start seeing these aspects. And why do I spend a lot of money? Have you noticed I spend a lot of time on these squares and oppositions? You know, well, Ryan, what about trines and sextiles? That's going to flow in its own way. Everything's going to be smooth. But if you start blue skying people with astrology, they're going to say, oh man, another person, you know, it's going to be a good day to buy a dress. You know, I mean, what do you, come on, you know. I mean, I unfortunately, you know, we do psychic fairs once in a while. I met you there, didn't I? You know, I was doing psychic fairs, and people expect a little bit of, I don't know what they expect when they go to them, but the tarot readers and the different readers and astrologers, and you know, but I don't fool around. You know what I mean? I don't fool around. I try to go right to the juggler. Did I not go to your juggler? I mean, I went right to. In my case with you, it was a brother, and I saw everything about the brother. And she's, what's going on here? I came to see about me, right?
Yeah, he called me after that everything happened. Oh, you're an astrologer, because at the beginning when I told him, because I was scared to tell him, oh, you know, keep an eye, what are you doing and stuff. After he called me and said, okay, your astrologer was right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was. Yeah, and I don't see my brother in years, and you know.
Hadn't seen him in years.
Yeah.
So she called him, and where was he in? What
Argentina.
Argentina. So she called him and found out that everything was predicted. But the thing is, sometimes the chart's talking to you. It's trying to give you what's really pertinent to that person's life. You think, oh, well, it's about me. It's not always about them. It's about their mother. It's about their son. It's about their whatever, you know. So you'll get messages out of a chart. It speaks to you. And all of a sudden, if you're listening well, And I said, listening, that means listening to a message coming out of a chart. It begins talking to you. You say, and you say, wow, it's got a message. Sometimes it's very specific. I can play you radio shows. People call in for readings. Never see these people in my life. Never don't know anything about them. They call me up, say, I want a reading. And I do a reading on it. I said, you're blind. I said, you were in a car accident in 1976 and you're literally blind, legally blind. He doesn't even say anything. Doesn't respond. I could play that for you. I got it on tape because I used to record those shows. Said your mother was a saint, your father was an abusive alcoholic. You tell somebody that on the phone, on the radio, in public, but I saw it, I had to speak it, right? And he doesn't say a word. And I know I'm out on a limb. I really stepped out all the way, as far as I can go. All I have to do is cut it and I'll fall, because once you make a mistake like that on the air, no one believes you, okay, if you're wrong. You got nowhere to go, okay? And so, all of it goes along, and then at the very end he said, well, Ron, let me tell you, I'm legally blind. He says, I was in a car accident in 1976, and that's where I became blind. He said, my mother was voted Mother of the Year in a small town of wherever it was, he said on the air. And he said, my father was an abusive alcoholic and drank too much and was very hard on the family. Where did it all come from? Okay, from a chart? You're going to find when you're reading people, and you'll get bolder and bolder. You start out real timid. You'll start out timid with your stuff. You'll say, oh, should I really say this? But you know what? You'll start getting confident as you start looking. Because as above, so below. As within, so without. As above, so below. As within, so without. If there's conflict going on from the heavens in here, the heavens in here are going to reflect that. And the heavens within here are going to create a world out here. And it's going to be a reality. And you get more confident as you start doing this. And you won't hedge bets. And why, again, I said, I spend a lot of time on squares, oppositions, and afflictions. Yes. Because you can't avoid those in life, So you got trine Venus and Jupiter, and you're going to have a lot of money in your life. But does that mean you're going to be happy? Does that mean you're going to have good relationships? Does that mean you're going to have peace of mind and joy in your life? What is it to gain the whole world and lose your soul? Huh? How many people lose their souls in their life? What's your soul? Your capacity to feel. It's your capacity to understand and have empathy for others. Okay, that's what your soul is. When you lose that in the pursuit of wealth or fame, you see all these destroyed lives. They think I wish I was a star. Look at this guy, look at Bieber and whoever he is, what I mean? What a wonderful guy he is. He's got, he's my idol. I bow down to him. I mean, stop and think about it. Their lives are shambles. Most all of them. Very few of them are happy. I'd rather be content. I'm in a joyful life. I live a simple life, as simple as I can, but yet at the same time, I've got love in my life. I've got a love here, devotion right here, a devoted wife, and a love that is eternal. Those are things that are valued. Everything else is a bunch of crap, excuse me. Sure, it's nice to have a nice car. I've got a nice car. So that doesn't make you rich or poor, There's a scripture that says, I've seen princes walking, and I've seen beggars riding. That's the scripture. Many, many years ago, when I was a young man, I worked as a busboy in a Holiday Inn, and my ex-wife worked as a waitress. And I saw so many beggars riding. So many beggars sitting at the table with all their money. Beggars. And I saw so many princes back in the story working with me. Beautiful spirits, beautiful souls that had joy in their heart and compassion for their fellow man. And they were the true princes, although they were seen as the beggars. You get what I'm getting at? Get an eye for the truth, the perspective for what's really real. Look at people for who they are, not what they're wearing, what their finances are, how much of this and that they have. It's not about that. No matter, it's the same with you, you know what I mean? It's all a bunch of crap, you know, it's all nothing. I've made millions of dollars in my life. Haven't got a thing to show for it, but I've made it. I've been very well, I've been top of business, and I've been the most successful you can be. You know, I mean, very successful. Maybe not the most, but I surely have done well. So, but it's all ego. You know? It's all ego. Yes, Michelle.
This is kind of nudging at me now. About the progressed moons. I've heard you talk about them so many times over the years, but I still don't really understand how to figure it out. Now, I know that you can plug a few things into the computer and the computer will tell you, but will you be explaining that in more detail?
We're going to be doing it. We're going to do it in each of everybody's chart. Everybody's going to get a transit progressed moon in their chart. They're going to know where they are. They're going to know where the new moons are each month and how to put them in their chart. And they're going to be able to calculate those themselves. I can show you in a minute. I can show you, for example, I'll show you something here. Let me see if I can get this.